0, and we're in business. Nice. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to have you. My name is Aleš, and I'm here with Janice Haywood. And today we're going to talk about how to present like a pro when English is not your native tongue, language, whatever. Janice, you're going to have to help me with that. So,
Whatever you
welcome,
want.
everybody.
Hi there, Alice. Welcome, everybody.
What I'd like to say is now, if you're with us, please type in a chat where you are joining us from. We want to know. I'm assuming we're going to have a global or at least regional audience, and most of you are going to be non-native speakers. So I like to call you out. I want to apologize because I'm going to massacre all of your names by mispronouncing them. But that's probably also something that is pretty common for international audience and non-native speakers.
Well, I
Janice,
think it. I
help me
think
with
it's.
that.
Yeah. I think it's also something that's quite common for native speakers as well.
Oh, is
When
it?
native. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, native speakers, we recognise the names of our own nationality, but I'm sure I'm going to get some names wrong as well. That's just how it is. But
I see
we'll be fine.
Carolina from Madrid, so hopefully that's
Ah,
close enough. That might be cool.
absolutely. Welcome, Carolina. Which
And
part of
so go
Which
ahead.
part of, yeah, Carolina, which part of Madrid are you in? I'm based in Madrid as well.
Oh, true. I forgot, Janice. I was like, all the native speakers are based in UK or US. So how dare you be based someplace else? But you're right, Madrid. See everybody else. If you're with us, type in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd like to know what's the composition of the audience. And as you're doing that, I'm actually gonna let Janice to introduce herself because I invited her because of her skills of a professional coach who's helping leaders with presenting effectively, effortlessly, in English, hopefully. Janice, I know I'm saying it wrong. So what would you add?
Well, yes. Hello, everybody. Let me introduce myself. As you can hear, I'm British, but have been living in Madrid now for, 32 years. It really is my home. And I basically train and coach non-native speakers of English to communicate and present well. Okay, so we're looking at skills and language. And I became a coach in 2008. I've been in the training industry for 20 years in total. And what brought me to Spain, I used to be in retail management, so I have a management background as well. So I'm really quite, how can I say, familiar with the scenarios that many of you have to deal with, particularly in the corporate world, yes, when you have to give those presentations. And I know what it's like to communicate and present in a second language, because when I have to do it in Spanish, it's not the same, is it? But hopefully I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you move through that.
I think maybe that's a very good start. So, how is it for you to present in the other language, and what is it typically for your clients? How do they feel? Is there like a common denominator, or is it different for each person?
I think there is a common denominator, and generally, it's amazing how many people say to me, "My English isn't good enough to present," and yet we've been having a conversation, a fluent conversation in English for the past 20 minutes, and then they turn around to me and say, "But my English isn't good enough to present," and I say, "Well, I've been understanding you perfectly. The English isn't the problem. It's something else that's getting in the way." And so when I work with many of my clients, we work a lot on mindset. Okay, what do you think? What do you really think about your potential and your ability to give a good presentation in English? I always say, actually, that if you've been asked to present in English, somebody must think you're good enough. We're often harder on ourselves, aren't we, than other people? Yeah. What do you think
Got
about
it.
that, Alice? Would you agree?
I am very judgmental when it comes to my own skills, and very merciless when it comes to my own shortcomings, because I can hear and see it. But when it comes to other people, I totally agree. I mean, I would say that being asked to present, as you mentioned, is already a sign that people trust in you,
Yeah.
and I would say these people are all right, but bunch of our viewers might be working in corporate environment and they are just forced to speak. Their role just comes with it, or it comes with the role. They don't have any choice. So
Yeah,
what would you say to those people who actually have
yeah.
to? They are not asked. They just have to present business results. They have to speak. They have to manage upwards or downwards, and they don't feel that they have it in them. They don't have the skills.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, that's it's a very common thought. At the end of the day, we can all speak. I'm sure if they've been asked to present in English, it's because they can speak English. Okay. Now, what I love about presenting anyway, in any language, is that presenting is complex. It's like a science and an art, more of an art really, but a lot of communication skills. It's about who are we as a presenter, what message do we want to share, how are we going to structure our messages, are we going to use slides, and how are we going to connect? There's a lot of things to think about. Okay. And as I said before, if you've been asked to present in English, it's because somebody thinks you are capable of presenting. Nobody wants you to mess up unless you have a specific enemy in the corporate world. And I always say to my clients that whatever your level of English is right now, that's the level it is. Never apologize for your level of English. It is what it is. And we have to accept it. You have to accept it and do your best. You will do your best. Of course you will. You wouldn't do otherwise. So understand that, yes, somebody thinks my English is good enough. We do need to make time to prepare and practice. That is one thing. That's the biggest thing that's going to give you confidence. And if you're presenting in a second language, you need more time to prepare, okay, than in your own language. So believe in yourself, time to prepare, and then do your best, and then get the feedback. It's about having a growth mindset, I think. A growth mindset being that you do something, you get a result, and if you don't really like the result, you simply analyze what you can do differently. Yeah.
So something struck my attention in there. You are saying never apologize for the level of English or language, and realizing that's not what I'm normally doing. When I'm facing a shortcoming, it might be my technology, it might be anything not related to language, it might be my bad mood for the day. I usually tend to call it out to kind of take away its significance. And it makes it easier for me. But you're saying never apologize. So where is this coming from?
Yeah, never apologize, because then you're going to put people's attention on what you're indirectly saying is your insufficient level of English. Because if you felt your level of English was sufficient, you wouldn't be apologizing, would you? Actually, people aren't judging us as much as we think. And also remember that every person who attends a presentation, they're attending that presentation to get some benefit from the message, okay? So they want to hear your message, and they're not judging you personally as much as you might think, because they're concerned. There's something called the spotlight effect, that we all walk around with a spotlight on ourselves because we are the most important person in our lives, but everybody else has their spotlight as well. So they're thinking about the things that are important to them. So don't draw attention to anything that you are thinking is perhaps insufficient. Don't draw attention to a mistake on the slide. Don't draw attention to something like, oh, I forgot to say that, sorry. No, just let it go.
Interesting.
Just let it go.
Interesting. So you would say like we are overestimating the risk that someone is going to call us out or judge us quietly.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think with my clients, and apart from the language, something that I always, when I'm working on mindset, something that I always mention and emphasize is that every audience in a presentation, we can say they are on the radio frequency WIFM, okay? What's in it for me? And as they're listening to you, that's what they're concerned about. What's in it for me? They're everything that you're saying, they're trying to get the benefit. And then they're thinking, how does it apply to me? How does that make me, this information that Alice is giving me, okay, how can I use that to improve or to move a project forward or whatever? Okay, that's their concern. Their concern isn't whether you make a few mistakes in English. And actually, they don't care. They don't care that you make a few mistakes in English. They only care about what you can do for them with the information that you're giving them. And I created a little, how can I say, a little sort of mantra the other day that rapport and connection are more important than grammatical accuracy. I mean, where many of my clients make little mistakes, they make mistakes on prepositions or sometimes a mispronunciation, but mainly prepositions, for example. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Would you accept that, or would you push back on that?
Well, I would agree, I guess, when it comes to the rapport and understanding. But I see there's also a fine line between let's say aesthetic shortcomings of one's presentation and potential misunderstanding, right? The prepositions in English, especially, they can kind of make and break the sentence, and it happened to me, more than once. It happened to me many times when I just sat quietly in the room when the American speakers were using sport metaphors which I didn't understand. I was like trying to figure out what the heck are they talking about, and it works both ways. Yeah. So how would you see this dilemma? Like is it? Can we separate the aesthetics, and the fluency and let's say accent from the misunderstanding? And how would you work with those two?
Well, I think, okay, let's be realistic. Let's acknowledge that there can be misunderstandings, okay? If we are communicating and presenting in a second language, there can be misunderstandings. What we need to be doing as well, and this is challenging, we need to be present enough, we need to be in the moment enough, and the way to do that is to focus your energy out towards the audience with the intention to serve them, okay? So when you do that, your words are going to flow a lot more. So we need to be present, and if we're present, instead of worrying about, are we going to make mistakes, etc., then we can tune in to the visual visual cues, to see if we believe people are understanding. And as soon as we see something that looks like somebody's not understanding, let's just be natural and check in and say, oh, Alice, can I just check in? You look confused. Are you following me okay?
I hope it's a rhetorical question. Do I look confused? I need to complain to my mom in that case. That's how I came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see your point, and actually, I think this is a brilliant one because what I do, I work with leaders when it comes to large-scale events, and I'm making sure that they come across as powerfully as they can. And you mentioned the visual element. I'm still stunned how many people in the teams I work with, and I work for Amazon, how many people just shy away from video completely, and they wouldn't realize that they are throwing away 50% of the information stream that they can work with.
Yes.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think, again, so much comes back to mindset. And I think we have to embrace the opportunity to connect, embrace the opportunity to communicate our message. And the best way to communicate our message is if we have all the visual cues that we can. Okay, in virtual presenting, we don't have as many body language cues as we do face-to-face, but let's use them, and I'm going to repeat because this is really important. It's probably one of my favorite tips that I give my clients. Focus your energy outwards. Now, in virtual, that means, I'm going like this. You can see my gesture to focus your energy. And I'm going like this. It's from the heart. So when you care about what you're saying, when you care about your message, when you've prepared your presentation with the audience in mind, which you should have, then focus that energy out. In virtual, it means embracing the camera, and encourage people to, I also say, yeah, let's be assertive. Let's request people to put their cameras on. And I say, can I request to put your camera on unless you have an unstable internet connection? Because it's really helpful for our communication. So, it's your presentation as well. Too many people do hide behind cameras that are switched off. They probably do that because, whatever that they do, but when they do that, it really increases the chance of them multitasking. And so, but when you do have people who don't have their cameras on and they don't give an explanation, again, back to mindset, don't think the worst. Don't think it's about you, think it's about them, that there's something that's stopping them, whatever. And it's not about you, it's about them. You have to protect your own energy and the way you think and your mindset. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
But I'd say, based on what you just described, Jen, is that especially if you're a non-native speaker, you should use your video because that's your extra, expression available to you. And just kind of not using it, it's not just a mistake, it's inefficient use of your resources, which are going to be to some extent limited when it comes to mastering the language.
Yes, because also, when we talk about communication, I say that without connection, there isn't effective communication. And not having cameras on is really reducing the potential for connection, right? So, get yourself into a good place with your mindset. Believe that you can do it. Believe that you're going to do the best you can. And I'd like to sort of give a tip here because for me, mindset is very important. I teach my clients a strategy that's called developing positive coping statements. And what I get people to do, I ask them about the fears and anxieties that they have. And it's usually something negative. They might say, I fear that I'm going to get blocked. And that's a very negative thought that you can have that's going to make you feel bad. Okay, so how can you take that thought and make it more neutral and make it more positive? So instead of when you need to be aware of what you're thinking, and when you find that you're thinking some negative thoughts, take that thought and develop a positive coping statement. So instead of thinking I'll get blocked, that's just something in your mind and you probably won't get blocked. You'll find a way to get through. Instead of thinking I'll get blocked, think my English is competent. I've prepared my presentation. I'm sure I'll be fine. And that's a thought that's going to make you feel much better. And you need to get into a good feeling state. You need to get into a good mental and emotional state to perform well. You still might feel nervous. But just because you feel nervous, that doesn't mean to say you're not going to give a good performance. So the state that I advocate and that we want to be aiming for is a state of being relatively calm, focused and determined. Yeah. And I see we have some questions coming in there, yeah?
We do. Let's pick them up because, as you said, Janice, we need to communicate, we need to connect with the audience, and that's what we're going to do. So we have 2 questions so far. Please, keep them coming, and we're going to tackle them one by one. So we have the first one from Carolina, and I'm going to read it out with my imperfect English.
No, don't apologize. Stop it.
You were going to say that, so let's do that. So Carolina is saying, I find that sometimes I struggle when presenting to high-level executives about numbers or data that is determining important decisions for the company. Sometimes I start speaking faster and my body betrays me and my cheeks start burning, which in turn, wow, and this is a long thing. So let me see if I can read it all. Which in turn makes me feel self-conscious, and sometimes I trip over some words. So
Right.
that's what's happening.
Yeah. Okay. When we feel nervous, we naturally start to speak faster. And so the first thing we need to do in this situation is bring our awareness to the situation. Okay. The pre-work is work on your mindset, develop positive coping statements, visualize yourself giving a great presentation, okay, visualization techniques. But when you are in the moment, if you are aware that you're speaking quickly, just slow down. Use pauses. When we slow down and we use pauses, we come across as more confident. I'm doing it now because my awareness is on speaking slowly and and doing pauses, right? So we come across as more confident. Pauses are a win-win in public speaking in any language, because they give they give you time to bring your awareness to various things, to what you might say next, to what the audience is doing, and it's a win for the audience, because the audience need the pauses to assimilate what you've just said. Because it's very hard for an audience to hear your words, think what it means to them. And so if you're speaking very quickly, it's often too much for the audience. So slow down. Yeah. And I'm a great believer in mantras. Develop some short mantras that you can say to yourself to calm yourself. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. It is okay. It's okay. You'll get through it. It's okay. Pause and breathe as well. Learn to breathe. Do that again beforehand. Learn how to breathe properly, so that when you're in a moment where you're feeling nervous and emotional, you can breathe, use a pause to breathe deeply, but without it sounding the breath, that they can hear the breath. Okay, so study, research techniques to get yourself grounded, because you need to be grounded and you need to be relaxed, because when you're feeling anxious, your rational brain just runs out of the door and you can't think properly. But when you're grounded and relaxed, you can more easily be in the moment. And again, I keep coming back to it, and no apologies for repeating. Focus your attention outwards. It might be challenging, so make that eye contact with the pause and bring yourself back to the moment with focusing your energy out to the audience.
Well, no, I like that, Janice, and that's something that's very true when you are watching other people speaking. It's very rarely when we perceive someone speaking so slowly that it's uncomfortable for us. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, this is it. You want to achieve a speed that is appropriate. But even in our own language, when we're presenting, we should be speaking about 10% more slowly than we do in normal conversation. Definitely. Presenting is a structured piece of communication with some important messages in there. So when you slow down, you can also bring your awareness to your pronunciation and articulation. So we speed up when we get nervous, and we speed up when we get excited. When I'm training groups and training courses, and I get really excited about presenting, I love it. And sometimes I'll say something very quickly, and then I stop, because I realize that I've run my words together. I've not articulated well enough. So I stop, just go back, and repeat the sentence more slowly. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. See, we have another one from Adriana, so I'm going to put it on screen again, and let's see what we got. So Adriana is asking, do you think some grammatical mistakes or not being fluent in an interview could reduce your job opportunities? Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it depends very much on the context, on the job, on the people interviewing you. But generally, when you think about it, it's, well, I would say it's easy. It's not easy to improve in your English, I know, but it's something that's under your control. So I think in any job interview, I think experience, qualifications, and that minimum level of English that they're looking for is the most important, not that your English is perfect. Because there could be another candidate and their English is perfect, but they may not have the appropriate attitude and experience and qualifications, but mainly attitude and experience. So I don't think necessarily it would reduce your job opportunities. But again, like everything, keep working on your English. It's the same with me. I keep working on my Spanish. I could do a lot more to improve my Spanish. And it's a choice I make. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to say, based on my experience from international teams, there are two parts to it, right? The first one is what Janice was saying. You got to focus on your circle of control, and if you're going to focus on how this might betray you during interview, it's not really something you can affect. It's only gonna make it harder. But on the plus side, the teams I'm working in, like I'm now based in Luxembourg, and the people I work with, most of them are not even native speakers. They use English. They are very skilled when it comes to using English, but they are not too judgmental, because each of us comes from different environment, and English is mostly our second language.
Yes.
And even for the people who come from English-speaking countries, there's a variety of accents all over the English-speaking world. So thinking that there's this one, I don't know, Queen's English expectation.
Yeah,
it's not the case.
Yeah, and something I'd like to pick up on there, Alice, actually, and that is that as non-native speakers of English, you tend to be very hard on yourself when there's a miscommunication or misunderstanding that you don't understand, or people not understanding you. You think it's about you. But that's not necessarily the case. It's absolutely true that there are, in the UK, for example, there are some very strong accents. I remember when the beginning of my career after leaving university, and I was working in retail management, and I was sent up to Scotland, okay? In the store, it was terrible. I couldn't understand anything, okay? And so it's not always about you. It's not always about you. And not only that native speakers, they have strong accents, but some native speakers, they do make mistakes with their grammar as well. And many native speakers, they don't have good communication skills, that perhaps they're making a point and they're not making it well. They're rambling, they're digressing, and so don't think it's always about you.
Yeah, so this ties back into what you suggested earlier, Janice, like adopting the constructive mindset that would kind of carry you through the entire presentation, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And something that I get a lot of questions about, or my clients, they worry about, is if they can't find a word when they're presenting and they can't think of a word. And they find that frustrating because they know they could do that. They could find the word in their own language. A couple of things there. Even in our own language, sometimes we can't find the word. Okay, so coming back to being realistic. And a little technique for you, depending on the context, depending on your relationship with the audience, get help from the audience. Ask them to, so you might very naturally say, what's the word I need? Or what's the word I'm thinking of? And because the audience, if they've been paying attention, they have the context, it's very likely that they will be able to supply you with the right word. In fact, I was working with a client, and just last week he tried this technique and he said, Janice, it really worked. And I think also these days, in general, presentations are becoming much more interactive. So that's a way to get that interaction with your audience, get them to help you. In the same way, if you're having problems with somebody's accent in the audience, it might be, you're presenting to a team and the team, well, let me put this into perspective. I have a client and he's Spanish and their company have been taken over by the Brits. He calls them the Brits. And he has his challenges. And he said, and sometimes I can't understand what some of them are saying. I can't understand the question. And I said, well, be natural. If you can't understand a question because of somebody's accent, just say, I'm sorry, I'm still not getting it. And then ask a colleague of theirs if they can help, because their colleague is used to their accent. You're not. Let's keep it as natural as possible. Okay. And again, also that's a tip for effective delivery. We should be aiming for a conversational style. I know you might say, well, that's quite challenging in a second language, but you can aim for that by keeping it as natural as possible. I mean, in my presentations and courses, sometimes, I'll be in front of a group and I've made a point and somebody responds and I think of a point to follow up with. And then when they finish speaking and I start and I think, oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say. And they just laugh. It's no big deal.
I like the part about the potential inability to understand, because asking is in most situations the easiest thing to do. Just ask. You can ask for the rephrasing or repeating, and you can say, yeah, I really want to make sure I'm getting it right.
Absolutely.
And what is interesting, and what I would actually invite everybody to do, ask one extra time than would be comfortable to you or anyone on the call. Because I do that. I'm the annoying person on the call who just keeps asking, okay, I still don't get it. Can we please go through that again? And many times what happened to me is after the call, people approach me individually and they thanked me for that, because they didn't understand, they were not clear, but they just wanted to let it slide, or they just didn't summon the courage to ask. Yeah. So think also about the advocacy for the other people on that call or on that meeting or during that presentation, who may be driven not by lack of English skills, but by fear or the idea that they might inconvenience the speaker.
Yes, yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think, and it's something that I say to my clients, and this comes from coaching, that often we don't delve deeply enough. Sometimes we'll ask a question and get a very general answer back that, oh yeah, it's good. Don't let that go. Yeah. So what do you mean by good? So, use those follow-up questions. And yeah, this is the thing, that if you experience something, it's very likely that other people are experiencing something, a lack of understanding, etc.
I agree, and my two favorites that mercilessly sometimes even the price of being slightly annoying or impolite, I'm fighting them. It's the passive voice and the collective we. Like, and you have commitments like, yeah, this needs to be. We all agree this needs to be done. Well, so what? So who's gonna do it?
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, passive voice. No passive voice in effective presenting. No. It needs to be more direct, I think. But actually, I think that's something that you brought up before. This, the directness, indirectness, and which sometimes is a problem for non-native speakers, isn't it? For example, in Spain, where I'm based, my clients say, well, sometimes when I speak, I'm too direct. And so I say, well, again, just raise your awareness, observe and really listen out for how others express a disagreement, etc., and, put your awareness on that and make a note, etc., so that you can start imitating and using the same structures. Yeah. That also makes me think of something that I'd like to mention to everybody, non-native speakers of English presenting, is some of you may be aware of the acronym KISS that we use for presenting. You're smiling as though you recognize that acronym, Alice.
I do.
Right, yeah. I say to my clients, you should KISS as much as possible when you're presenting, meaning keep it short and simple. Too many presentations are too long, too complex. In our culture, the Anglo-Saxon culture, we expect brevity, conciseness, and also, you know, if that's the case, as non-native speakers, you really don't need really sophisticated vocabulary. So speak with basic vocabulary, short sentences, which will help you with your pausing, to communicate the message. That's all we care about. We want to hear the message. You know, we're not in business. It's not about, you know, you're not at an academic conference, right? You know, it's the objective is to make sure that your message is understood. So you need to say it in the simplest, most straightforward way.
I would even say this applies to academic conferences quite the same. You know, you want to get the message across. That's the whole point why we are communicating.
Well, exactly, yeah. And too much communication is too complex. Yes, yeah. I see we have a question there from Alba.
Yeah, let me put it up for us. And Alba is asking, is it acceptable to ask the interviewer to speak more slowly?
Why not? I would say yes. I mean, it's the way you ask. You know, would you mind? Would you mind speaking more slowly? You're not going to give them an order, speak more slowly. You know, would you mind? Would you mind speaking more slowly? Because at the end of the day, it's about effective communication. You have to understand their question to be able to answer it effectively. And so if by understanding, then, so that means then speaking more slowly, then yes, it's quite acceptable. I think generally, native speakers of English, you haven't been in the industry of teaching English as a second language, which I have. I trained as an English language teacher many, many years ago. They don't realize the impact of how they're speaking. They don't realize how they run their words together. They don't realize that non-native speakers have problems, big problems with phrasal verbs. Actually, many native speakers don't even realize what a phrasal verb is. They just don't understand. So they do not ever think about, we call grading their language, meaning adjusting the language to the listener. But you see, adjusting our language and our tone and etc. to who we're interacting with, that actually is part of good communication skills.
There's one more trick, Alba, that I'm using as a non-native speaker quite often, and instead of asking for slower speech, I'm asking, oh, could you please rephrase it? I'm basically forcing the speaker to use different words and different structure. That gives me a better chance to get what they're saying.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so
how are we doing?
Thank you for the question, Alba. I think it's time to kind of sum up what we've been talking about and what takeaways we have. And I know, Janice, you have more for us and for the audience. So you've been talking about the three main clusters, I guess, of techniques or approaches that we should apply. Would you sum it up for us and for the people watching?
Yes. Well, I think the first thing that I would emphasize is the importance of getting yourself into a constructive mindset around your potential and ability to communicate well in English. And a constructive mindset means thinking, which then impacts on how you feel, which then impacts and plays out into what you say and do. Thinking positive thoughts, okay? That your English is what it is, you'll do your best, you have prepared, the audience want to hear my message, whatever it is, okay? Those positive coping statements. I also think a big takeaway is to accept that your English is what it is, and that's okay, because on the day that you present, it can't be otherwise. And if you fight against that, if you resist that acceptance, then that's going to cause a problem for you and make you feel not good. We want to be feeling as good as we can, okay? We'll still be feeling nervous, but we want to feel as good as we can on the day of the presentation. And I think if I had to emphasize something else, it's about understanding and realize that you will never be able to present in English as you can in your native language. So that doesn't mean to say that you're not always trying to improve. Of course you are, but accept that it will be and feels different, okay? But just because it's different, it doesn't mean to say that you can't give a good presentation in English, okay? So understand that presenting in your native language and presenting in English as a second language, it will feel different, okay? Oh, and one more, KISS. Keep it short and simple. In your content, in the way you speak.
True. You also mentioned actually the need, and I love that because I'm all about interaction. You mentioned that it's important to work with the audience and actually let them help you do the heavy lifting, right? It's a two-way communication, even when you present.
Yeah, absolutely. And working with your audience, whenever we present, it's always about the audience. What we're talking about, it's for them. Okay, because they're going to get some benefit from our message in some way. And just one little tip that, if you do struggle and you are getting blocked, do this. Turn it into question and answer. Say something like, I think to really address what you need, let's just go to question and answer so I can address what you need. Because when you do that, you take the attention off yourself and you put it on them to ask you questions, and that gives you space to get your brain back into gear, okay? And you're framing it as though you're doing it in the interests of the audience. But what you're doing is that you got unstuck, you lost your way, but you want to continue communicating your message to the audience, but do it through their questions.
Oh, Janice, I kind of agree with you, but you shouldn't have given away the secret, because now it feels like we've been struggling mentally the entire time, begging for questions. But let's say people want to get more, they want to get deeper. I understand that you offer one-on-one services, you offer support for groups,
yes,
and you also kind of shared that. You did put together some material that people might be interested to see.
Yes. In fact, I've put together, and it's an important component of one of my courses, 20 practical tips for presenting in English as a non-native speaker. So we're going to make that available. We're going to, in fact, if you direct message me on my LinkedIn profile, request to connect and direct message, and I'll send you that, no problem. Okay, but 20 practical tips, a lot more things than what we've been speaking about today. And also, Alex, there you've put up my website, janicehaywood.eu, is totally dedicated to presenting. And in the resources section, there's lots of free downloadable resources available. My business mentor says I give too much away, but I don't know, I just can't help it. I'm delighted to have a chat with anybody who's interested working on one-on-one. Absolutely.
Got it. Well, you got to say there's so much more you have one-on-one, if needed, if you want to go deeper. So that's cool. And I'm direct messaging you right after this show, Janice, to get this.
Fantastic.
And looking forward to kind of see more of your cool content on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Please, everybody, connect with me. I post, as Alice knows, I'm always posting tips, lots of tips daily on different aspects of presenting, not just the language skills as well. So those tips can help you to present more effectively in your own language. So would love to hear from you on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay. So, well, that would be it from us today, and as we said, follow us, check our content. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't, well, then I guess don't. But in any case, I would like to see you, lens to lens on these shows. And I do this every week, same time, Thursdays. And next week, we are talking about turning employee engagement into brand advocacy. And we're going to have distinguished guest, Dr. Michael Levenstein, who is actually working on this for decades now and is consulting businesses, helping them with this very problem. So join me there and join Janice on LinkedIn. And other than that, have a great evening or lunchtime or whatever is your time zone right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.